Easom. He's the non-commissioned officer in charge of the Secretary of the U.S. Army. Thank you, Jason, for being with us today on What's Good with John Vincent.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a privilege.
Well, when I started this podcast, when Sam and Allie and everybody came up with this idea of a podcast of positivity and happiness and good news, good feelings, you knew right away, because we talk almost every day. You knew right away that I was going to you. You were that lead off and cleanup hitter. You are, and I'm not gonna. It almost sounds like I'm talking about a title fight right now. You are the most positive person I have ever met in my life, ever in my life. He always says, John, you crawl, you walk, you run. And when he talks to me, he brings me up. He's reached out to me when he said he's felt that I've not been, kind of worried about you. Are you okay? And when I had this podcast, it was you, it was Joe Madden. I mean, you guys were right there. Boom, boom. And I love you, brother. And it's so good to see your face. It's so good.
Yes. Good to see you too.
But we want to know about Jason. Where are you from? I know where you're from, but they all want to know where you're from and what's your background.
Well, a formal introduction of myself. My name is Jason Easom. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. Born and raised. The streets made me there, and it made me who I am today, as tough as I am. But I wouldn't be here without my mother. It's a young African-American male raised in a single-parent home. There's no way I could be as tough as I am today without my mother. So she is actually who made me who I am. She was always positive when situations were tough for us growing up in New York. I never knew it because she remained positive around me. And so I couldn't have asked for a better mother. So to my mother, thank you so much for raising me into the young, not so young man anymore I am now, but for raising me to be a positive individual. I joined the United States Army in June of 2000, 2 weeks right after I graduated from high school at the young, ripe age of 17. My plan was to join the Army, do 4 years, and I wanted to be a cop in New York City. But 20 years later, I'm still here. And so that plan never survived first contact, first of all. But it was part of the team and the people that I met within the first 4 years of being in the military. It's like, let me give it another shot, one more chance, and then I'll get out. But obviously, I did not get out. So,
quick question: what's your mom's first name again?
My mother's first name is Lillian.
Because I know when I sang last time was Mrs. Easom, I sang to her.
Yes, sir.
So, however, your mom just had a birthday. I know this is going to air a little later than that.
She just turned 60, and I thank God. I'm looking forward to her being there.
To you. Happy birthday, dear Mom, Lillian. Happy birthday to you. I know this isn't on your birthday, but we're close, and I wanted to make sure I said that to you because I saw Facebook and I didn't reach out because I'm an idiot. But I love you.
My mother always told me, better late than never, but never late is better.
That's true. That's true. Man, I feel like a jackass now. All right, Allie, what are you thinking? Allie is like, she brings the dynamic to this show. When it was just me before, it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to see this guy. So now she's in here and people are enjoying it. It's getting like, almost like that Regis and Kathy, Kelly, Ripa, that when you get that dynamic that Robin with Howard Stern, I don't have the talent to carry something like this. So she has the brains and the talent, and she's got some questions for you. So
yes, sir.
To ask you something that sounds very interesting to me.
So, maybe you could just tell us a little more about your time in the Army and your time in your position.
Yeah, so I first started out in Germany. Germany was my first assignment. I spent 3 years in Germany, moved to Louisiana, backtracked to Germany. That was my first time I deployed away to a foreign soil, which was to Bosnia, and I was there for 10 months working in a special operations task force there. Humbling, first year in the military. You didn't know what to expect, but it groomed me to be where I'm at today. I moved to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I was there for 3 years, and I deployed to Iraq while I was stationed there as well. Moved to Fort Carson, Colorado, deployed while I was there. Came to the Pentagon once and worked for 2 secretaries of defense. Went to Miami where I worked for a 4-star general down there. came back to the Pentagon now, where I've been for the last 5 years, and I've worked for the last 4 secretaries of the Army over the last almost 5 years.
And what have you learned in that time there? Is there anything?
I think probably the biggest thing that I take away is that the Army, the military in general, but I'm biased to the Army. The Army is the biggest fraternity in the world, and it is the only institution where you can travel from coast to coast and never have to spend money at a hotel, because you will have family in every state at which you decide to travel. And that's one of the biggest things that the military provides us, is an extended family. It gives us family that, I mean, quite frankly, I grew up, there were 7 people total in my family, 7 total in my family. So every weekend we got together, it was a family reunion. I can't do that anymore. Everywhere I travel, I know somebody that I was either stationed with, deployed with, met in some sort of training. And so the biggest thing I'll take away from this 20 years is my family tree is absolutely extensive. And not only is it my family tree, but it now becomes my daughter's family tree. So that's probably the biggest thing that, the biggest thing I learned is that you rely on each other. The person that sits to your left and your right, whether you're in combat, whether you're going through issues at home, whether personally, financially, professionally, you depend on those people every day. And those are the ones that really pick you up, and they see you and they say, something's not right. Come over here. Let's talk. Let's go sit down. Let's go for a run and talk about it, which doesn't sound fun, but actually it is. And that's one of the biggest things that I have really taken away from being in the military.
Jason, I'm gonna ask you a quick question. I didn't think. Now, what would you say to people? Because I always say you're so positive. What would you say to people that don't have that support system, who are truly?
What I would tell people that don't believe, because the key is that they don't believe that they don't have a support system. But make no mistake about it, there is always somebody out there that's listening and watching, that pays attention to you, but you might not necessarily pay attention to them. There is always somebody for someone out there, whether you believe it or not. You just have to be willing to say, hey, I do have a problem. And if you are willing to say to yourself, I have a problem, that's the first step to getting to where you really need to be. So to say we don't have anybody, we always have somebody. It's just a matter of, do you want someone? And once you say to yourself, I do want someone, by all means, life will change in the craziest ways. And again, one of the biggest things I say to myself is, I don't believe in coincidence. There is no such thing on this earth as coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. When I met Big John 3 years ago, it wasn't a coincidence that I met him. It happened for a reason. And we've become very close, and we've become brothers. He's closer to me than some of my blood family, but it didn't happen because of coincidence. And so people have to realize that when you stumble into somebody on the street, at the doctor, at the gym, wherever, people don't just pop up for no reason. God has a plan for all of us, and he puts people in your life in certain situations at certain times in particular to make sure that you realize you do have someone.
And
go ahead,
I think it's fair to say that that's a really hard step for people who feel isolated and alone to reach out. My father, who I don't have a close relationship with, has been in the Army for pretty much my whole life. And I think sometimes that's what stops him from reaching out, is sort of like, it feels like guilt.
Sure.
I think that, and I wonder how much of it comes from his experiences in the Army.
Sure, and that's a valid point, because some of the things that we experience, when you think about, I joined the Army in 2000, and I've been in the Army. September the 8th will be 20 years that I've been in the United States Army. And every day for the last 19 and a half years, I have been in the Army while we have been at war. At no point in time in the history of our Army since 1775 has the Army been at war for 19 consecutive years. At no point in time in our history. So, not to make an excuse, but there are things that you deal with for 19 years consecutive, 20 years consecutive, depending on how long he's been in, that he's probably dealing with some things that he just machismo inside that you don't really know how to deal with. But at some point in time, it'll come around to him, and it'll also come around to you that maybe we got to meet in the middle here. And maybe we do want to make things better, but going to Iraq, going to Afghanistan, you see things that are traumatic. And there is a stigmatism that is associated with mental health that so many people are afraid of. But what worrisome to me is that you will do something to yourself that really has a long lasting impact on others more than it does than you taking your own life, because you do see things that are very traumatic being in the military, but how you deal with it and how you cope with it is very important. Pushing family away is one of those things that you tend to see people do, because dad might feel like maybe you don't understand what it is that I go through. So why do I want to talk to Allie about it? Because Allie may not understand it, but it's hurting more than anything else, right? And so sometimes that we are our own worst enemy in the military, because we do think that civilians don't understand what it is that we go through. But a lot of good friends of mine that are athletes, I tell those guys a lot. There are a lot of parallels in things like in sports, right? They're team sports. The Army is a team sport. I cannot succeed on a battlefield without my point guard, my shooting guard, my center, my wide receiver, and you got to move the ball 5 yards down the line, 5 meters down to the goalpost. And so there's so much parallels between sports and the military as well. But just as in sports, they go through a lot of things that they don't think that other people understand. Same thing happens to us, right? Sometimes I come home and I don't want to talk to my family about some of the things that I experience, but I do talk about it because I need to get it off my chest. And your point of view is probably way more important than my little view like this, because I think in a military sense, whereas you would think in a big life sense, and so I think your opinion is more important to me. So dad could be going through things that he just doesn't think that Allie understands, but he's probably missing out on something good. We'll talk about that offline too. We'll make sure this happens.
See, that's the thing about Jason. And I just said about people that I've had and that I wanted for this podcast. Jason, a lot like my sister Lisa, who is unbelievable, and I have 2 sisters, Lisa and Laura, that I just love tremendously. If I when I was younger, I'm like, oh, I never had a brother, and I got lucky with some great brother-in-laws. But looking at my childhood growing up, I had these great, amazing sisters, and I'm still as close to them today as ever. One thing my sister Lisa has always told, me and my sister Laura, and my mom and dad, she's the one saying this. And one thing that you have in common with her, and Lisa goes, no, Johnny, it's even on a different level, is you take everything, Jason, it could be whatever it is, and you turn it into a positive. How do you do that? How do you do anything and everything? And I've talked to you at times when I know you weren't in the best of moments, but you still had that, wait a minute, Big John, wait a minute.
Yeah. So one of the things I always try to put into perspective, that, yeah, we have bad days, we have bad moments, we have bad weeks, but at the end of the day, somebody has it worse than me. And so if I stop and I feel sorry for myself because I'm having a bad moment, the person that's got it worse than me, I'm letting that person down because that person needs me. And that person might not know who I am yet, but you can bet your bottom dollar they will know who I am eventually, because that's the person who feels that they don't have anybody. But I know in the back of my mind and deep in my heart that somebody's got it worse than me. But so instead of me feeling pity for myself, I need to pick myself up, dust myself off, and go find that individual, stumble upon him or her that needs a little picking up, a little pep talk. I'll give you a good example. A lady at Publix, I met her when I first moved here a year ago, and I saw her sitting in her car, and I hadn't seen her in a month. She's a very nice lady. And I saw her, and she rolled the window down. I said, hey, how are you? And she just started bawling. And I said, what's the matter? She said, well, I just found out that I have to move in 30 days. Again, no coincidence that I ran into her at the moment when I ran into her. So, of course, I had the ability to do something to help her. But when I talked to you, I was just coming back from Fort Hood, Texas, and I told you that was a pretty bad trip, and particularly what we saw about, the whole Vanessa Guillen situation down there. And I was feeling bad. I was in a bad mood. But I said, Jason, you got to get up and go get you some bananas, get you some potassium. You should feel better. But I went to the store, and there she was. And she was in a worse predicament than me. I can tell you right now that she has moved since that was last week, Friday. She's found a place. I've helped pack her up a little bit and get her to move. And so to stop and feel pity for yourself is never a good thing. You do have to stop and take care of yourself and say, okay, take a breather, drink water, watch ESPN, and then get back at it. I can't stop trying to push positivity to people. And I know I can't get 10, 15, 20 people every day, but I know for a fact I'm going to get at least one person. And if I can get one person turns into 5, that turns into 10, and they're going to post something on social media that says, hey, I just ran into this guy and he was positive. Share, forward. And you touch more than what you know, even though you think what you're doing is small. It really is huge, because one person turns into 100 people.
But something tells me, and I know this, not tells me, I know, that if you did have it, because there's somebody who is in the world that has it worse than anybody else, right? Mm-hmm. There's somebody in the world who has it best than everybody else. And then that could be perception too, but something tells me, mm-hmm. if you were told, if God said, hey, you're struggling the most right now in this world, how would you dig out of that hole? How would you get out of it?
Say that last part again.
If God came down to you and said, you know what, you are in the worst predicament in the world. Nobody has it worse than you, mm-hmm. Jason. Nobody has it worse than you. Because I know you said, John, there's always somebody who has it worse. But sure. In my heart, not my heart, I know you. I know you're so positive. You would have to have that example of somebody else having it worse than you.
Yeah.
You were theoretically having it the worst time go at it on the planet. What would you do?
It's great. It's a great question, because I would tell you, growing up in Brooklyn, I felt that it couldn't get any worse than where I was at. And so what it was when my back was against the wall, these are the cards that I'm dealt. And I can't get any lower than this. So now the only thing to do is to punch. And it's to punch forward until I can make a crack, until I can see a little bit of daylight. And once I get a little bit of daylight, I'm okay. So I got it. If I'm against the wall and there's this is like, hey man, you got to swing to win this fight, right? You're in round 12. This is the money round here, and you're done. You got to punch out of it. Again, everybody doesn't have it though, right? Sometimes you do feel sorry for yourself, and that's always a concern of mine. But for me, for Jason, I got to punch my way out of this to try and make a bounce back, to make a comeback.
Part of it, I think, is a discipline to focus on the things that you can control and the things that bring you happiness. And I think
that's right.
It helps sort of get over the humps that life has in front of you. So I that's what I think of a lot. And what you're saying is sort of like that discipline to push away from the easy, which would be to just sort of succumb to the depression.
That's right. That's exactly right.
The defeating thoughts.
Yeah, and because like you said, you control what you can control. All right, and
did you get this all from your mom?
I did. I mean, I tell you, we had a tough upbringing. My brothers and sisters. Again, my mother we were raised in a single parent home. The three of us, we all turned out to be okay kids. But it all comes from her, you know. And like you, Allie, my dad, I tried to have a relationship with him, and I won't stop. But, you know, I have a family, and every now and then I will try. He has 2 granddaughters that I would love for him to be a part of their lives. But, you know, at the end of the day, I can control what I can control, but also he can control what he can control. And so love is a two-way street, obviously. But my mother is absolutely the rock of my family. She is fury. All 5 feet of her is all fury, and the most passionate, caring person I've ever met in my life.
So you saw this growing up when you had your back against the wall, when you were in really tough situations. And I had a lot of similarities because I got bullied through, I want to say what I remember a lot, and a lot of things are coming back to me that I didn't remember, of getting bullied and being so angry and thinking I was at the bottom of the barrel. When I was a child, I was so afraid. I was so scared. You know, my sisters were my guiding light that kind of helped me. You're saying your ma did that. What did your ma do? What's one thing that stuck out of your head, one moment in time that you said, wow, this is resonating with me?
The one thing my mother showed us was that you don't allow a crack to divide your family. No matter how bad it gets, the one thing my mother taught us was no person can ever walk in between you, even to the point when you're walking down the street. My mother never let anybody walk in between us when we were walking down the street, ever. And so that has always resonated with me, because instead of being like this, she said, you and your brother and sister will always be like this. And she made sure that that's how we went to school together. We came home together. We fought together. Like, we could fight. Nobody else is going to fight you guys, okay? As long as we fight like this, we're okay. And so of all the life lessons she taught me, the one thing she said, that there is strength in numbers, and you and your brothers and sisters should always stick together.
That's beautiful. There you go. Jinx, you owe me a Coca-Cola, and I'm trying to show Coca-Cola a lot, Jason, because I'm trying to say, Coca-Cola, I love Cherry Coke Zero if you want to know. Hey, there you go. I'm right here. Hello. Jason, when I met you, when we were there, and you said coincidence, there's no such thing as coincidence, right? And I went to the Pentagon. When I first went to the Pentagon, I was like, yeah, people are like, are you excited to go? And when you guys invited me, I'm like, yeah, yeah. When I went there, I was so impressed, and I was so proud to be an American, to look in there, to get into this building and say, wow, and just like, oh my God. The respect you all have for each other, the family, the connection. How is that built in such a beautiful way that I've seen at the different military bases that I've been to? Just how people act with one another, that family mentality. And I know that comes from people like you, like Secretary McCarthy, who strong leaders and people look up to. But what do you think is that real glue that makes it so special?
It's, look, basic training is one of it is an experience I will never forget. And if I don't remember anyone's name from the 20 years I served in the military, my drill sergeant Williams, is the one person I will never, ever, ever forget.
Why?
Because at that point in time is when they instill in you team, and you cannot survive in the military by yourself. So from the day you get off of that truck and that drill sergeant sitting there screaming in your face, and his or her job, and by the way, female drill sergeants are probably worse than males. I will tell you that right now. They teach you, like, you have to learn the new language, and you're right off the bus, and they expect you to react to contact immediately. And so what they look for is who's the natural born leader at that point in time that's going to say, okay, none of us know what the heck we're doing, but let's pretend. And so at that moment, for 8 weeks, you don't know anybody. You all come from different walks of life, different parts of this country, but you got to do it all together. So from day one in basic training is when it's taught. But as you move throughout the military, as you move from assignment to assignment, again, that family atmosphere is what really keeps you together. When you go train, somebody sees something different than the other. You play cards on a weekend with each other. You play dominoes. You come to barbecues and cookouts. It is family, like 24/7. But it's also leadership, right? And leadership is tough. Leadership is not easy. Being a leader is something that we all aspire to be. And I look at all of us as leaders. You guys are leaders just based off of what you're doing here, what's good, trying to spread positivity. It's not easy. It's tough. Getting this thing off the ground is not easy for you. Being a leader in the military is not easy. It's tough. But tough times don't last. Tough people do. And that's why they put tough people in tough situations like you guys are in, like I'm in, to continue to help people grow, teach, coach, and mentor these guys along the way to keep the team together. And that's what it's all about.
You said something really interesting. You went into basic training and you guys said, none of us know what we're doing, right?
Nobody knew what we were doing.
So now let's apply it to coronavirus and everything that's going on in our country right now. What would you say to everyone who's not trained like the Army is, is not so, like, when I went to Fort Campbell, when I went to Fort Myer, I was just so impressed. I was so impressed. And when I went to go jump and rappel, off the tower there,
yeah.
So afraid. I quit, and I'm like, I was General Whiskey. I'm like, I was so afraid. I go and I did the backwards jump. I don't remember jumping at all. I just remember a couple soldiers helping my big fat ass up, and it. Wow. And so that right there was uncomfortable, and that wasn't in a war situation or anything. So right now, none of us, right? I'm hearing on the streets, I'm hearing from people, we don't know what we're doing. Tell us how we can get past that and feel more comfortable being uncomfortable.
Well, and that's key, right? You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because the coronavirus obviously is a new strand of a virus that nobody knows how to deal with, but they're trying to deal with it. And they, being the professionals, are the ones that we really need to listen to, because just like you rappelling off of a tower, there are people there that knew what they were doing. They train on it every day. But you didn't listen to a guy that's never rappelled out of a tower to say, hey, this is how you should really rappel. Probably doesn't make sense, right? So there are health professionals who I absolutely admire and adore what they're doing as it relates to coronavirus, being on the front line. They are absolute heroes for what they're doing. But I think what we have to do is, as a society, just take this uniform off. As a society, we have to listen to the health professionals. They're there for a reason. They're not stupid. They're very educated. I'm stupid. They are not, right? So I think if we listen to those guys and listen to their advice, we may be in a little bit better place, day by day, but we got to be willing to take care of each other, right? We have to be willing to take care of each other, invest in each other, take time to take care of each other. A mask is really to help you, not me, right? So it's about helping each other, being nice to each other, being kind to each other. So I think listening to health professionals is probably the only advice I could give you as it relates to coronavirus, and wait till they finish their work on the vaccinations. And by the way, the Army is playing a huge role in the vaccination development for the coronavirus up at in Fort Detrick, Maryland, at the Medical Research and Development Command.
I know we've talked about this before, but do you get scared?
I don't. I can't. You don't have time to be scared. I can't live my life scared.
For real? You don't get scared? You don't get scared?
I don't. I've been tested for the coronavirus now about 12 times. I get a little tingle in my throat. And it's like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. Because at the end of the day, Big John, we all got a ticket. You just don't know what that number says on the ticket.
Right, but I'm talking about.
Why am I worried about that ticket?
Do you get scared in any situation anymore?
I do get scared because my daughter just turned 12. And so I'm definitely afraid of that. She's having stomach pains now, so I know what's coming. So to be brutally honest with you, I do get scared because I don't know what's going on right now with her. That is scaring the life out of me right now. And it just started today. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, I do get scared.
But it seems like people that have this extraordinary positive focus, Joe Madden, I spoke with, who was on podcast 1, you now, and who I speak to all the time, my sister, other people in my life, my friend Perry, my friend Larry, they always have this, it's almost like they get scared, but for somebody else. Like when I'm a hypochondriac and I tell you I'm scared about something, I kind of get, I'm a chicken, right? I'm nuttier than a payday bar. I mean, I'm okay with saying I'm crazy. Everybody knows I'm crazy. I've been seeing a psychiatrist since I was 18 years old. I'm 48 and I'm still nuts, but I'm trying, right? But it seems like people who are extremely positive, who really, really are here, they get scared for others. Like when my dad had cancer. He had stage 4 cancer. It spread to his lymph node. I'm crying. I'm like, it was a death sentence. I'm crying my eyes out. I goes, wait a minute. Don't cry for me. I see kids. They're 5 or 6 years old. They got a cancer, Johnny. Don't worry about me. And we're just looking at him like, what? I'd be like just crying and everything. In 6 months, he goes there and the doctor goes, Vince, it's going to come back. And he goes, you don't know and I don't know. It sounds like a joke. 6 months later, same thing. The doctor goes, Vince, it's going to come back. You don't know and I don't know. The next time he goes there, his doctor says, he goes, listen, you're too negative for me. So I talked to him. I talked to my Uncle Benny, who lived through World War II in Italy. And they talk about things in such a simplistic way. And my Uncle Benny told me, he says, Johnny, you got to be strong for other people. When you say, I don't get scared, but then when you say yes, right away it was for your daughter. When my sister Lisa says, I go, Lisa, what would you do if you got sick? She goes, I would worry for Tommy, her husband, and her kids.
Yeah.
People who are positive, people who are strong, seem to always be fearful for others. Where does that come from? Is that just something you're born with, or can we all learn that?
I mean, I can't answer that question. There's a professional that knows the answer to that question, and it's certainly not me.
But where
But
does
again,
it come from you, Jason? Does it just?
I go back to my mother, right?
Right.
I go directly back to my mother.
Have you ever asked her?
So it's a funny story. We were coming home one night from a block party in the summertime, and my mother had a feeling, and she said, I was on her right side, and she said, Jason, move to the left side. I have this feeling. And the minute I moved to the other side, she was shot in her arm with a pellet. That would have been me, right? Like in my hip. But she had this feeling, and I'm like, oh man, Mom, are you okay? And she was like, don't worry about me. Are you okay? Meanwhile, she has a pellet sitting in her arm. And I was maybe 10, 11 years old, and it scared the life out of me, but she wasn't worried about what was going on with her body at that point in time. She was worried about, were we okay? And that's, you see an example like that of just pure bravery. It's like you have no choice but to, just own up to it. But she also instilled that in us to don't worry about yourself. It will always come back to you. But anything that you do out of the kindness of your heart, you never do for recognition. You never do it for attaboys. You do it because you genuinely care about people. And I, for my entire life, I've always tried to live to take care of other people because I'll be okay. I'll be fine,
Why?
But it's in me to take care of other people.
Why, Jason? Why will you always be okay? Why will you be fine? And why do you always want to take care of other people?
So I trust, first and foremost, I trust in the Lord that I will be okay. I talk to him twice a day, once in the morning and once at night, for waking me up, and hopefully I can get 3.5 hours of sleep, and I'll be okay in the morning. But and again, so that's first and foremost why I always want to do it, because I do have a strong belief in God. I'm not the most religious person, but at no point in time do I walk around this place without God in my pocket. And then just, again, taking care of people was just an example from my mother. And it comes back to you. It makes you feel good. You sleep good at night knowing that you're not greedy. You're not in it for yourself. Like Jackie Robinson said, a life is not important except for the impact that it has on others. And I truly, truly believe that. It was playing baseball growing up in New York City. Obviously, Jackie Robinson was a huge idol for me. But that quote is something that I have stuck with for so long, since I was probably 11 years old, that a life is not important except for the impact that it has on others. And as long as people can think about it in that sense, you'll be okay.
That's
Look
awesome.
at Jackie Robinson today, right? We honor Jackie Robinson all the time because Jackie cared about others. Jackie didn't care about himself. His wife, same way. She's the same exact way.
That's just beautiful. I mean, that's the stuff that I do believe is in every one of us, every single human being on the planet. And I believe that the fear of the mind, which brings out jealousy, anger, and all these other feelings, which I struggled with for a long time, because the person I hated the most in my life from 15 to 45 was me. So what did I want? I didn't want to see other people succeed. I didn't want to see other people be better than me. I didn't want to be, I wanted to be the best at everything. I wanted to be always, everybody liking me, me, because I knew I was so weak inside because I did not like me.
Mm-hmm.
Until I learned to say, John, don't judge others. You got to stop that. Don't judge others. Judge yourself with loving accountability and accept others and have empathy. Because what I did before was I hated myself. So when I would judge others or look at others, it was because I hated me. It wasn't because I was peaceful with me. And then when I found out that if you root for everyone and want people, because we're all related. If you believe in God or not, we start somewhere on the earth, all of us at some point. We are all related. I feel that energy connects us. I feel that something in here, like you said, you go to sleep at night, you feel good, right? Right now, it's that big submarine sandwich that I just ate, and it's kind of hitting right now. Like you said, right? You put your head down, you're like, when you do something good, it feels good. Like, and you do that. You keep coming at that with like, I tell them, he is this locomotive of positive. Bam, and Allie, I mean, Allie's a lot younger than me, and her mindset is so amazing because she wants to be enlightened. She wants to know the reasons of the world, what really matters in life. And tell us, Allie, tell Jason about that, and tell him how you feel like that time we asked, and we were all sitting on the rooftop, and you said you wanted to be enlightened, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, I want to be enlightened. I think what I'm the most interested in about, especially with this podcast and meeting people through John, is how people, and we talked previously about that discipline. Like, what are the things that people do to sort of get to a place in their life that they feel that they have control over the things that they can control and are okay with things they can't control. And so that would be something I would love to know from you, is how do you approach your own mental health? How is it important to you, and what are some things that you incorporate in your everyday life that maybe others can as well?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. We do neglect ourselves a lot. I'm the first to raise my hand and say that we do neglect ourselves a lot. But for me, I always turn to family. I turn to God first, and then I turn to family. I think some people are so afraid of religion, right? They don't want to be seen as a Bible thumper, and I'm not. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I walked into a church. I'll be the first to tell you that. But what I can tell you is the last time I prayed, and that was this morning. And I can tell you the time before that was last night. And so if people just have faith in whatever it is that you want to believe in, first and foremost, that's how you have to try and help with your mental health, is having some sort of higher being to look to say, okay, show me a sign, because things don't happen without him, right? Then I turn to my family, and my family is my sanity. They make me, when I come home at night from a 14, 15-hour day, it's all worth it when I come home and see those two little girls and see my family. It is all worth it. So family is what I turn to. The last thing I turn to is the job. The job is like the least most important thing to me. And I don't mean that in any slight way, but in a level of importance, it's God, family, job. To put it in a 1, 2, 3 type rating.
Vince Lombardi used to that, God, family, and the Green Bay Packers. You remember that?
That's it. That's it. I got to come up with a quote from the Giants now.
There you go. He's been a huge Cubs fan and Bears fan his whole life, correct, Jason?
Who was it?
You're a big Cubs fan and Bears fan your whole life.
Ryan David McCarthy.
Chicago pizza is better. Secretary McCarthy, Chicago's pizza is better, and Chicago hot dogs.
We argue about it at least 3 times a week. If I want to help my mental health, I argue with the secretary about Chicago and New York food too.
You know what? I think it's all a win, because you get me a New York pizza, you get me some Nathan hot dogs, you get me some Vienna beef, and you get me a deep dish pizza. I'll eat the damn whole thing right there. So I'm good.
Yeah. But Allie, I would tell you too, the other thing that I try and do as a 37-year-old young man is that I try to learn from others, and that helps with my mental health too, because as the world evolves, Jason cannot have the answer to everything. I learn a lot from my 12-year-old daughter. I learn a lot from the 22, 23-year-old young man that works for me right now. God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth, and so I try to listen more than I talk. And that actually helps with me to evolve as a person, to continue to help with my mental health, because how the 22-year-old kid thinks is not how I think. We too many times we're set in our own ways to say, this is the way I did it, this is the way it needs to be done. But we have to evolve as people. And mentally, it is very, very helpful if you evolve. If you choose not to evolve, you become more frustrated. You become more angry because you're set in your ways. I learned so much more from younger people than I can from, say, John, because he's older than me, right? But from you, I probably can learn a lot more. From my soldiers, I can learn a lot more from them because they are younger than me. Their vision is a lot more clearer. It's a lot more younger. It's a lot more up to date. Mine is dated at this point. And so that's probably one of the biggest things that I do as it relates to my mental health, is to continue to evolve as a man and learn from people that are younger than me, who we typically don't think that we can learn from, but we actually can learn a lot.
Jason, that's a great point, because most of us say, and you learn from your elders, this, that. I've never really heard anybody say, learn from somebody younger. But that is so true, especially in today's day and age with technology and how life is changing rapidly more now than ever. That's such a great point that you just brought up, that you can learn from somebody who's younger. And, I never thought I was going to be out of touch until I started listening to music and somebody's like, John, do you know this song? And I'm like, oh God, no, I didn't know that. I never thought I wasn't going to be cool. I knew I wasn't cool when I was getting bullied, but then I thought I became cool in college and I became a singer. And now I'm like, oh shit, I ain't cool anymore. It's like, I don't even know. They were telling me, and I'm like, no, I don't know. So that's an amazing thing you said there, and that's a great thing I picked up from learned from you today, that we can learn from people younger than us. And you hear these, especially today, everything is so divided. Everything, and I want you to get into that. When you hear people say millennials or baby boomers, why is there a label on that? Human.
That's exactly right.
Human. I can learn from you. I can learn from you. I can do this, do that. So right now, with all the uncertainty going on in the world and everything, what can you tell us? Some positivity, some things you experienced, some things that make you get through and say, don't worry, because we need to do this, this, and this better, and we're going to.
Yeah, I think community relations are pretty shattered right now at this point. Obviously, given the untimely death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others, too many names to list, and it is very tragic that there are so many names out there that are listed. And one can only hope that the system will work itself out and justice will be served for all of those individuals that lost their lives way too early. But what I will tell you is we have to take a hard look at ourselves first and foremost and understand where we stand as being a part of the problem. Now, I caveat that to say, I was in New York maybe a year or so ago with my brother, and we were going to the store to get something to eat. And cops jumped out on us. I was in sweatpants, I was in Jordans and a hoodie because it was cold. And they jumped out on us and drew guns. And the reason they drew guns was because we fit the description. That's disheartening because he said, no, I'm serious, man. You really fit the description. And he pulls out his radio and he said, between 5'5" and 6 feet tall African-American. And I said to the cop, good luck, because that's every kid walking around the street of Brooklyn right now. So do you choose to jump out on every black kid that you see, or are you going to do your due diligence? And that was a question that he couldn't answer to me. But to have a gun drawn to my head, right, at being in the military for, at that point in time, 18 and a half years, been to Iraq, been to Bosnia, been to Afghanistan, willing to die for this country. And I should die on the streets because I have on sweatpants and a hoodie and I'm African-American. When I showed him my military ID card, he said to me, well, why didn't you tell me that you were in the military? I said, well, why does that matter? If you treat me with dignity and respect, like every human being should be treated with, if I don't give you a reason to pull a gun on me just based off the color of my skin, why do you think community relations can get any better at any point in time? Until we talk, until you become involved into the community, understand what it's like to grow up in Brooklyn, understand what it's like to be shot at walking to school as a high school kid, which I experienced, broad daylight, understand where you are, right? Because if you police in a community and then you leave, you have no understanding of the community. You just truly don't. You're there to get a paycheck and then you go home. Now, that's the bad side of it, right? The good side of it is every cop isn't bad either. And you shouldn't put all cops in this situation, in that batch of apples. But we have to do better ourselves, right? What are we doing to cause these issues in our own community? If we don't police our own communities, it'll never get better. We can't expect somebody else to come in and police it purely based off the fact that they don't understand what it's like to grow up in that neighborhood. But if I can rally people around and say, let's do this, let's do that, let's clean up the streets, things get better. And then you don't allow things like that to infiltrate where you are. But we have to when we get up in the morning and we brush our teeth, we have to look at ourselves in the morning and say, hey, am I doing everything I can be? Am I doing everything that I can do to be a law-abiding citizen, to be a good citizen, to be a productive citizen, to give back to the youth, to give back to the elderly? What am I doing? And if you can't answer any of those questions, you probably should take a step back and look at yourself and say, maybe I need to rethink or relook how I'm doing these things.
And that's
very easy to blame somebody. It's very easy to blame somebody else, right? It's very easy to point the finger at somebody else. But if you don't take a hard look at yourself and say, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? And you have to decide, you know, do you want to be an asset or do you want to be a liability?
You know, Jace, that's what I love about when we talk about things. We talk about things. And when I say that, me and you are really real every time we talk. It's you know, uncomfortably real, right? And you talk about people not understanding how other people feel. I have a lot of friends who are in law enforcement, who are outstanding police officers here in the city of Chicago that I love and that are great people. I have friends in the state and federal law enforcement agencies that are amazing human beings. And I can see that there are problems everywhere. It's like if you go to my, my job where I used to work at, there might not be the best person working in that job. There might not be. And when we start lumping everyone together, if it's by color, if it's by jobs, if it's by religion, if it's by anything, that's the danger. A great person told me one time, I said, you know, describe yourself. And you know who I'm talking about. She goes, human. And I was like, man, that's great. I love that. Great. It's human.
Yep.
Human. And what do all humans have? 99.9% of the same DNA. What does that mean? That means we are family. We are more connected by any means more than anything else. And you don't get PTSD from unconditional love. You don't get PTSD from respect and kindness. You get PTSD from these things that aren't good. But once we tap into what's here, that day when I walked on the military base with you and you had everybody there saluting you, and I was so impressed when I walked into the Pentagon and I saw the respect and the power and the love for this country. It brought something to me. And I said, you know, in America here, we're American. And we are a melting pot. My father came here from Italy, and so did my mother, and they met here in Chicago. Allie's Mexican. We have people from all over. And the United States is the one country that is so dynamic that we can make this such a beautiful house for all of us. You have the best military, law enforcement, people like in every corner that are good-hearted people that want to help. People in communities, Black communities, white communities, any community you want to talk about. Good people. You find good people anywhere. And that's what I want people to see with this podcast. There is good in 99.9% of us. And how do we keep dragging that out instead of wondering? And I knew when I was younger, I had my anger issues. And when I was jealous of people and angry at people, I did have that victim mentality. Why me? This, that, boom. And sometimes it's okay to have that victim mentality because you need to nurture yourself, like you said, and a little bit of feeling sorry for yourself is fine, you know, and I understand that. But pointing at people every time that we seem to all be doing right now, how do you, Jason, how do you make people, like you said, you saw that woman out there at the grocery store, and you know, and you talked to her and you said, what's wrong? You called me the other day, you said, Big John, I felt something that was hurting you. How do you do that? How do you bring that out of people? How do you do that?
It's crazy. It's like a broken recorder, but you have to genuinely care about people. So many people.
How do you genuinely care about people?
You don't do it. You don't do it for accolades.
Who thinks this way?
Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times when you look at it, right, a lot of people do a lot of good things on paper, right, for people. But there is a reward at the end for them, monetarily, acknowledgement, you know, via social media, all of these other things. If my face is never seen on the computer, I'm okay with that. But as long as my face is remembered in people's hearts, that's what matters the most to me. That's where the money is made. The money is not made in my pocket. The money is made in my heart. And you have to want to help people and feel your heart pump to say, I'm alive again and I can try my damnedest to help somebody again today. Right? I don't want acknowledgement. I don't want any of that. The acknowledgement I feel is when I see people smile, when they say, thank you for picking me up. Thank you for lifting me up. I did not know that I was down in the dumps and blah. I mean, for people to just say thank you is all I need. And that's what continues to push me to do it day in and day out. When you posted this thing on your Facebook page, so many people messaged me. It was like, man, I gotta agree with him. You're the most positive person. I can't wait to hear it. When is the podcast coming out? I was like, what are you guys talking about? And they saw it before I did. But to me, that it brought a smile to my face, because they come back to me and they say, you really are a positive guy. You're always positive. You are a New Yorker. You could be aggressive at times, but you always turn back to positive once you give people a little bit of tough love. I mean, and that's really what it's all about for me. Is I feel good here in my heart when I see people smile, when I can help somebody. And I'm not always in a financial situation where I can help somebody, but I'm always in an emotional situation. And emotions go a lot further than finances do, because just a conversation of 5 to 10 minutes could take somebody's mind off of what it is that they're going to, and they could change the course of their lives forever. And I would be perfectly fine if I knew that person took a nice left, got on the interstate, and kept going straight at 80 miles an hour. It's nothing about finances. It is all about how you feel inside. My life is irrelevant if I don't help people.
You know what's funny, and I know you have something. Go ahead, Al. You go first. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for sharing that story. I think it's really powerful for you being in the position that you are to be as candid as you just were about that story. I think it's something that you're doing right now in this moment to help other people. And I think a lot of times that's where it starts. It's sharing stories. It's something that we've done, for a long time, is share stories. And I think we have to get back to that and get back to telling our stories, especially, as a person of color in your position as a Black man, and raising, strong Black women to mirror the strong Black women that raised you. I think those stories are very important for people from all backgrounds. And I think there's a level there when we talk about violence being directed towards us for something that's out of our control. I think that's a different level of storytelling that is really hard. And
it's bad in America, Allie, right now, as far as race relations, and it's not the military is not immune to this either, because there's big race issues inside of the military itself, because the military is a microcosm of America, and every race and ethnicity that is out in the civilian world, they're in the military. And I had a conversation. Being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? You gotta be comfortable with it. And so we had a conversation one day, and I always try to bring my guys in and we talk. We just talk about what's going on in the world, because it's no use in hiding it. You got to talk about it and get it off your chest. Because again, you don't know, if they don't talk about it, where it could lead to. And it's investing in people again. And so, for so long, and I tell you, some of my best friends in the military, Robert Olson, a Caucasian male from Pennsylvania, Patrick Brown, an African-American male from Rhode Island, so many others from Texas and Florida, Miami. But I tell people all the time, and this is where you make people uncomfortable talking about race relations. You go to Iraq for 12 months, and you got your buddies to your left and your right. And, you're making sure everybody's safe, you covered. Everything's good. You get back home. Hey, welcome back. Glad you're all back, right? You get in your car, and you're no longer looking over your shoulder because you're no longer in Iraq. And so what I told one of my counterparts, who was Caucasian, I asked him this question. I said, when you get in your car and you drive home coming back from Iraq, how do you feel? I feel great. I'm comfortable. I'm good. I'm going to see my family. I said, the difference between you and I is that you no longer have to look over your shoulder because you're not in Iraq. I still have to look over my shoulder because I'm Black and American. That's the difference. And until I can fix that concern of is a cop going to pull me over because I'm driving a nice car, I'm in a hoodie because it's cold, and I'm Black. You don't have to worry about that. I have to worry about that. And until we can fix that, that's when, you will continue to see these racial divisions, both in the military and outside of the military. The Secretary of the Army uses my story a lot when we travel to places to talk about it. He and I are very, very close, but he's a Chicago guy. He wears Jordans, he wears Nike sweatpants, and he wears a hoodie. What he tells people when we talk is, I will never experience what Jason experienced, purely off the color of my skin. And he's comfortable with having that uncomfortable conversation. That's what we have to do as leaders, because again, being a leader is not easy. You don't put a chump in a leadership position. You got to be willing to talk about these issues. And that's the only way we will move forward as a country. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, you're a human. You can throw all that political crap out of the window. You are a human being first and foremost. And I always believe, like particularly in the military, I look at a man or a woman as that first and foremost, outside of the uniform. And if I can't respect you first as a man or a woman, there's no way I can respect you as a sergeant, as a colonel, if I don't respect you for who you are, right? You make the uniform doesn't make you. And so who you are as a person is who I have to respect. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. I have to respect you. Dignity and respect for all as a human being, not as a race or an ethnicity or a gender.
You know, it's so true. It's so at the end of the day. And it seems like right now we have to get like, it's almost like sides. And I'm like, I don't want to have a side. I want people happy. I want people happy. Like I said, I have many, many friends who are police officers, who are outstanding people, federal, local, law enforcement, different levels. People who are not police officers, people, especially being an entertainer. I've met all different types of people.
I consider myself to be an entertainer too.
You are. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. It's just amazing. Like, you can have, like, sometimes people say to you, okay, John, what do you do? I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. But what anybody else believes in, I respect. Because who am I to tell somebody what to believe in?
Right.
I don't know how everybody feels. I don't know how it is to be a woman. I don't know how it is to be an African-American man in the United States. You don't know how it is to be a woman. Allie doesn't know how it is to be you. If we all just have a little more understanding and understand there's no, oh my God, all this is bad. All this is bad. No, there's good people everywhere. And in my heart, maybe I'm naive, but I believe 99.9% of the population are good people. We do things out of fear a lot of times, and I've done many of those things in my life. But there's that common good that's here. It's just underneath a lot of that fear. And until you peel it back, right? Almost like that Superman thing. We all have that there. Until you peel that back and say, wait a minute, what's really inside all of us is the same. We all came, we all came from the same spot, if you believe or not. We did. So you have to see, I want to see the good in just about everyone, unless you hear something horrific and terrible, and you see somebody like it was Ted Bundy, for example, the old serial killer, John Wayne Gacy. It's just horrendously. I want to try to see the good in everybody until it gets proven that it's bad, and I don't have to be so, no, all this is bad or all this is bad. No, there's good in everything.
I got to tell John before, Allie, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. There are so many great people that came before us that had this same vision that they wanted for America. Dr. Martin Luther King, Lyndon Baines Johnson, so forth and so on. And I love sports. I'm a big sports guy. I'm dying right now without football, but it's in sports, you have a team and your job is to move in one direction as a team. The defense is the enemy. And then the offense, your job is to get from one end of the football field to the other. My job, while I'm on this earth right now, is to move the ball 5 yards. That's it. Because if I try to score a touchdown in my life, I'm going to kill myself. And it's an unrealistic expectation that we will be able to change everybody all the time. But at the end of the day, if you can move that football 5 yards or 10 yards, and I can turn around and hand the ball off to my oldest daughter, and let her move it another 5 yards, and she turns around and hands it off to her little sister, and she moves it another 5 yards, eventually, just eventually, God is my witness, eventually we will score a touchdown. But we got to continue to push and push and push. And when the going gets tough, you get a little bit tougher. Eat a pizza, get back on the field, and keep moving, right? And so as long as we don't try and score a touchdown on the first play of the game, we'll be okay. We'll save energy, but we will have enough energy to continue to push until it's time to turn around, hand the ball off, and let somebody else go another 5 yards. Because you got 4 downs to move the ball 10 yards. Why try to get 10 yards in one play when you got other teammates that can move the ball 5 yards at a time with the same vision that you have?
And when that defense is changing, that's when we need to change and adapt. That's when, like,
that's when you throw a flea flicker. That's all.
Yeah, and that's when, like, Phil Jackson came in and did the triangle offense, something that was new from I think it was from Andrew, Tex Winter. Was he the triangle offense?
Yeah, Tex was the triangle offense guy. Yeah,
we knew that Jordan jumped into, and the best basketball player that ever played, in my opinion, and I think everybody else's. I'm sorry, I don't need to say that. I know other people don't believe that, but to me, Michael Jordan was the best basketball player that ever played.
But it's crazy. It's funny you said that because we were talking about this morning about powerful people in America, and Michael Jordan. I use Michael Jordan again because sports is my comfort zone. And I said the interesting thing about Michael Jordan is that everybody knew who Michael Jordan was, right?
Yep.
Nobody knew who Craig Hodges was. Nobody knew who Ron Harper was. But without them, right, you can't win a championship.
Nope.
So that big guy, and we were talking about diversity this morning. I said, everybody knows who Martin Luther King is. But how many people know who Ralph Abernathy is? How many people knew who all of his wingmen were, right? So I always tell people we always focus on the big guy, but let's think about the little guy too. I said, because for every Martin Luther King, there's a John Vincent, there's an Allie, there's a Jason Easom. People just don't know who we are. And that's okay. That's the way we need to keep it, because what we do is not for recognition. That's okay. The big guy got the recognition. But without me, the vision can't move forward. 5 yards down the line, and this goes back to learning from people that are younger than us. So when you say when the defense changes up their defense, we change up our defense, and we find that 22, 23, 24-year-old that's just as passionate about bringing goodness to the world and say, hey, man, what's going on down here in the Twitterverse and the Snapchatverse that I need to change on what I'm doing? You get a new idea and you keep moving again. And that's how we continue to evolve as people.
That's so true, because, back in the day, we were smoking in hospitals until we realized cigarettes, you'd see, old TV movies or commercials, and doctors were telling you to smoke cigarettes. Now we know cigarettes aren't good for you. Other things, it comes out, we evolve as a race, and there's one race. It's the human race.
Race, that's
it. And there's one religion. Yes, I believe in Christ and God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. But if somebody else believes in something else, like I said, I respect that. Or if you don't believe, I respect that. But I believe in love, and love fits all of those things. So if you do that, if we open up, if we don't judge people on their jobs, on the color of their skin, there are tremendous, most of the police officers out there, all of them are good people. You have some bad apples. That's in anything, any line of work, anywhere. I want to see what's good. I want to find out what's good, and I want to listen to what's good. I want to have empathy for somebody who's growing up in a different neighborhood. And you said to me, Johnny, when I'm a hypochondriac and I suffer from mental illness, you go, Johnny, when I had to go to school, there was a couple times I had to, 6 times that I was worried about getting shot at. I never experienced that, but you opened up to my mind to something different. And I was able to look through your eyes for that moment and say, holy fuck. Okay. Just that little bit of understanding.
Yeah.
Closer and closer. I just want, it's simple, man. I don't know. It sounds fucking crazy, but I just want everybody happy. I can't make everybody happy. I want everybody happy. I don't want anybody.
That's a good change for you, right? That's a good change for you, because at first you wanted to make everybody happy, and now you realize you can't make everybody happy, but you got to get one at a time.
Yeah, and the biggest thing, and the other thing that was that change, Jason, and we talked about that, and and people said that to me, but that big thing was when I was younger, I wanted to make me happy, and what I realized when I was jealous of other singers or thought of being looked stupid or whatever. That was from my childhood. That was from me getting bullied. That was from me getting abused when I was a kid, and having this hate grow inside of me. That men that beat me up, and I have to always be the biggest, baddest guy. Well, I'm not. I'm not the biggest, baddest guy, and I'm okay with that, because you know why? I'm human. I'm human. Yeah. I'm no better. I'm no worse than anybody else. We are all in this together. And like you said before, none of us know what we're doing, especially right now. So what do we do right now? We try to make each other feel good on all levels. And I don't know, maybe I'm dumb. I think we can all sit down and talk. And when you talk from your heart, you know, it's easy to understand. You know, and when you talk out of fear, it's bad. And many times in my life, I talked out of fear. I talked out of anger. And I hated myself for that. Go home at night, look at myself in the mirror, and I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. Now I see what's important.
Absolutely.
Before we run out of time, I want to touch on, you brought up a couple times, and I wanted to see if you could elaborate on investing in communities. Sounds like that's something that you are thinking about, and if you could tell us a little bit more about what your thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, growing up, you know, obviously the people grow up differently in different ways, but every time I go home to New York, I always see a change, and I try to start talking to people back home about taking care of our own community, because nobody's going to take care of it like you will take care of it. Nobody will ever invest in your career as much as you will invest in your career. And so if this is a place where you have to live, you have to invest in the community. The other part about it is for older people within the community is that I tell them all the time that you have to invest in these young men and women to make sure that they don't go in the opposite direction. They don't become a victim of the streets. We have to protect our youth. They will listen to us because we look like them. We talk like them. We grew up with the same experiences like them. The same way we invest in our own communities, at work, we also have to invest in people. Take the time and not be so focused on work all the time, and invest in people from a personal perspective. Because if you invest in them, there is a return that comes back. If you spend it, there is nothing there for you at the end of it. You either invest your time or you spend your time. If you spend it, there's nothing that comes back to you. If you invest it, the investment comes back to the community. The investment comes back to the city, to the state, and ultimately the country. You invest in people, it breeds positivity into the world. It breeds people that want to work. So I think it is very important. And people are so selfish with their own personal time until it's time for recognition for something. And then it's all about the community. And again, it goes back to, I don't want public recognition, but if I can talk and I can see change one day at a time, 1 year at a time, that's what matters the most to me, investing in people. You want to see the community change. You want to see the country change. You want to see change for the better, not for the worse. And people who spend time, they're in it for all the wrong reasons. People who invest time are really in it because they genuinely care. I choose to invest my time every day of the week. Every day of the week, I choose to invest my time. And I do see the return on investment. And it makes me happy. I can go to sleep at night knowing, man, this time that I invested is not for no reason. Now, sometimes the time that you invest, it does get flushed down the toilet. But if there's not out of 10, I'm okay. But guess what? I'm going to come back after 10 because I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to give up that easy. Something went wrong. I messed up somewhere, and I'm going to go back and figure it out. But I'm coming back for you because I've invested in you, and I'm not going to quit on you. And that's the difference between investing and spending.
I picture in America coming out stronger, the best country on the planet, with the best people, all of us, all 300 and close to 50 million, or are we more than that now, of all races and religions, of believers and non-believers, genders and everything, respecting one another. It took me a long time to get respect because, again, like I said, my sadness in my heart and my anger towards myself. But once you just see what a beautiful place this is the world. We are the world. We are, you heard that song back there, we are the world, from everywhere. from everywhere. That's what makes this country so special, so great, so powerful, so amazing. You know, makes me proud to sing that national anthem for our country, for you, Jason, for people that serve, for our first responders, for everybody that is there with goodness in their heart, helping their fellow human being, trying to make this a better place for all of us, which we will. We'll beat this. We'll beat all of this because we have it in us. We have the greatest people here in this country. When I say we have the greatest people here in this country, I'm going to say it's all of us. I'm going to take a bet on all of us because that's the only way a family gets better. We are a family because the person who lives next door to me is my neighbor. The person who lives next door to them is their neighbor. So eventually, if you go 100 miles away, 200 miles away, 300 miles away, we're all neighbors bordering this country. We're all family. Let's keep this house together.
The key, the key for most people to understand is the best thing about families is that families fight.
Yes. Yes.
But as you come out of the fight, which will define your family. So you're either going to have a link or you're going to be together, right? Families fight. I mean, hell, my sister and brother and I, we fought all the time.
Yeah.
Anybody getting between us. And the other thing, I thought about this, Ali, as you asked me what's one of the biggest things I took away from the military is that General Mark Milley, he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, always says the best thing about our military is that when we raise our right hand and we take an oath, we don't take an oath to a king or a queen. We don't take an oath to a dictator or a communist. We take an oath to an idea. And that idea is the Constitution of the United States. And we fight every single day to protect Americans' constitutional rights. And so everything that's going on in this world that is good, that is of the good, I'm proud to serve every day for the last 20 years because what I do, what we do, what my brothers and sisters do, allow people to exercise all of their constitutional rights in this country. And that's why I get up every day to go and do what I do. And I'm sure I can speak for the rest of my brothers and sisters. That's why we do it. We don't take an oath to a president. We don't take an oath to anyone else but the ideas that was put in the Constitution of the United States. And that, my friends, is what's really good.
Yeah, wow, Jason. I mean, you're telling me you are an entertainer. So when you retire, are we going to be a comedy duo? Are we going to be, singing and comedy? What's it going to be? Because I mean, you just wrapped up with what's good on there, and you're too smooth, man. What's up with that?
I mean, John,
we voice now.
I get passionate about this stuff, so
I know you do. But what's good is that people like you in this country make it a better country. People like you in this country make it a place that is going to make this country succeed and be the greatest country it always is, and just be better. And you inspired me that first day I met you, brother, in the Pentagon. You inspired me, and I'm grateful for that. That means the world to me. That's beyond the world. That's the conscious being we have with every other human being on this planet, and those beacons that shine brightly, that say, "Hey, I'm here." When you reach out, when I on Monday said, "Hey, I felt Big John was feeling something." I did have a bad week before that. I'm like, "How the hell did he feel that?" Well, that's that connection. So I can't wait till when I come back out to the Pentagon. I'm always honored.
Forward to having all you guys out here. You need to bring the whole team out so we can show them.
Yeah, he's dying to come out. He can't wait to go. And it's going to be amazing. We're going to have a blast, and it's just, it's going to be unbelievable. And when I went there the first time, I told him, I said, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, seriously. And I know we have your retirement party.
We do.
We have our event with Chef Irvine and Secretary McCarthy. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you guys. And I'm blessed that you guys are looking out for us.
I appreciate it. This has been a phenomenal opportunity. Ali, it is so good to meet you. And Sam, thanks for everything yesterday. Here's the other thing I will tell you, Ali. I asked this young man the other day if he believed the sky was the limit, and he told me yes. And I told him he was dead wrong. I said, because if you believe the sky is the limit, you will sell yourself short. There is so much beyond the sky. The sky is just a view. It is never, ever the limit. And I always try to tell people, never limit yourself to the sky because there's so much beyond it. I feel in you the potential to do so much. And John has talked a lot about you. And so I really appreciate having you here as well, and allowing me into you guys' world for a little bit, and allowing me to be open and candid with you guys. And I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm really glad we got to do this. I learned a lot talking to you. I think that the world I come from, I guess I would say I'm like a radical. You know, so it's like when we had a conversation about meeting you, we talked. I just have a plan because like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. You know, I want to like live my life in a way that's not in black or in white. I want it to be in like that gray that I think we all want desperately to ignore, because it is easier to see things in black and white way. And I do, you know, I've had my own situations in police, and obviously like the relationship with my father who was in the army, and, you know, I think that those things influence me to see things as like anti because it was safer. And so I think getting into a situation to talk with you and with John in a really candid way helped me exercise like that openness and to not live in that black and white, but to live in the gray and like be comfortable in it as much as I could be. So yeah,
and that's really the thing. We have to see the good in everybody. Like you said, everybody's picking one. No, there is good in everyone, guys. You can't lump everything together, you know. And again, what's amazing is that that's what the country was built on, that we have to have now, that we see more than ever, just the love we should have for all of each other. And Jason, as I leave you right now, I leave you with this, you know. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty above thy fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee. He crowned thy good in brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.